was it that you noticed that you normally wouldn't have noticed going on the walkabout? Anybody? Yes.
What I found is, Swamiji, this being silent for a couple of hours, for long hours, what I found a difference is that fortunately you become centered.
Yes.
The silence within,
Yeah.
you start feeling, and you feel a little more meditative,
Yeah.
and less thoughts crosses your mind.
And the advantage is, if you make it a habit, your husband will be eternally grateful. I'm only joking, but it's true. That is why we have a silent retreat, because then we have a chance to still everything. And when there's so much traffic in the mind, we don't have the opportunity to do that. And we're living in such a highly technological age that children are surrounded by noise. See, there's a man who felt that his children had an interest in music, so he bought them a piano, and anyway he came home from work to see how were they doing on this piano, and they hadn't even touched it. And he said to them, "What's wrong?" And they said, "How do you plug this in?" So that's the mindset that people have, surrounded by technology, expect everything to work by themselves, everything busy, and accomplishment and achievement taking priority everywhere. That becomes a difficulty for us. And so we can see, not just the common sense aspect of, from time to time, seeking solitude, but we can see how it's not just a practical thing, but there's a deepening that takes place. And you described so well, it's a centering taking place. Centering now has become very common language in Christian contemplation. There are techniques that are described exactly like that. There's a form of Christian meditation called centering. And this is exactly what they mean. They may not fully know that what we mean is centering the accessing of that inner essence, which is your own divinity, described in Christianity as the kingdom of heaven within you. They may not necessarily fully subscribe to that or emphasize it. No doubt that it's there. But of course all mystics will agree on this. But the mystic side of religions is fairly rare. And the mystic journey is really the real start of spirituality and religion. It's a journey we have to take. It was so wonderful for Swami Purnananda to lead us around the, I was going to say pyramid, I don't know why, but it's now I'm stuck for it. I have to ask what is called the
Labyrinth.
Labyrinth. Yeah, right. There we go. Labyrinth. Of course, a sense of humor is also a reflection of the bliss within. And I thought afterwards that, there are lines like that, normally at airports and banks. And very often when you are in a line like that, there's a certain frustration. Why? Because your expectation is you would want to be at the head of the queue and do your business and go home. Of course, there's one person who climbed over a barrier when they first invented, climbed over the barrier, and a big security guard came. He said, "What do you think you're doing?" And the man says, "I'm just climbing back over the barrier." But that's a very telling point, isn't it? That if we have some kind of anxiety, it's to do with some expectation of the future. We want something, and we haven't got it. And this is a form of desire. Very often we think desire is desire for an object, but that's not the case. It's more subtle than that. Some people have a desire to feel or to want to be rewarded. Some people have a desire to feel appreciated. Some people have a desire to be needed. Some people have a desire to be acknowledged for their wisdom. So these are very subtle psychological desires which are at the root of many, many overreactions and actions. psychology, therefore, of it is, can we identify the subtlety of this desire, acknowledge it, recognize it, name it even. You know, psychology has this term, name and shame. So can we name it? As soon as you name it, in a sense you shame it. You bring it out in the open. And then can we then go on from there? And how do we deal with life as such? And so my question to you was like this. Did you notice something different? And did you record it? Now those people who go on the retreats frequently, this is their first port of call normally. And I ask them at the introductory level as well. Tomorrow, I say, because it's on a Friday, and normally not enough time on the Friday itself, but either on the Friday or the Saturday, please go out and see if you can acknowledge or write something down that you didn't normally notice. And this highlights the fact that not many of us are observant because of this traffic noise going on. All this constant activity makes us gloss over many important things. And the very important things would be found in the simplest things, things that we overlook. Let's take, for example, a leaf on a tree. You'll find a leaf is shaped in such a way that excess rainfall drains off without damaging anything. It has the capacity, through the marvel of photosynthesis, to absorb the sunlight and make a chemical conversion. And that creates all its life activity. You and I can't do it, but a plant knows how to do it. You can imagine how a plant knows, and I use that word deliberately, knows, planted in the soil, how automatically to take up the nourishment from it and extract the hydrogen and the oxygen, water in other words, and then from the carbon and so on make carbohydrates. Let's take a potato plant. It does it through the aid of photosynthesis, borrowing all the sun's sunshine, sunlight and radiation, and with its inherent internal knowledge knows how to manufacture carbohydrates for us, namely potatoes. And we munch and crunch on the potatoes and we huff and puff on the free oxygen and we bathe in the sunlight. It's surely somebody's due that we give a little thanks somewhere. And it's a non-demanding thing that nature is. It doesn't say, please thank me all the time. But inherently, if we tune into this nature, we will feel thankfulness. And the more we tune into it, the more thankful we will feel. The more sense of wonder, adoration, and thankfulness we find. But it's dependent on, are we observant? Did we see in the leaf of a tree all this capacity? Did it lead us to a link which says that the plant has this inherent capacity? Then did we go further, and then did we see its true nature? And its true nature at bottom level, we can see is a blissful base that religion calls God. Does that not evoke a kind of reveling in us? Hence the subject, reveling in these glories. And when we revel in the glories, don't we sing it internally? This is what Sri Ramakrishna meant. Sing is not repeat. We can easily repeat. But sing has a different aspect of it. And it doesn't mean to say that we sing like an opera singer or anything like that. That is wonderful. Recently, we celebrated the birth of Sri Chaitanya, and he saw that in this modern age, a very easy, convenient way to express pure love and devotion, an easy route to the source of everything that we call God, is to lovingly, in a non-demanding way, express our feelings openly, without inhibition, even accompanying it with dance. Now, if you did that in Grafton Street, they might think you were part of the Hare Krishnas, I don't know. But if you do it in a public place, is what I'm saying. If you do it in a public place, and particularly when friends are around or family are around, they might think you're a little odd. And so, for convenience sake, we can bypass all the external expression of it and catch the inner thrill about it. There's an inner singing that takes place. And one of the marks of spirituality will be an absence of body consciousness, which means I have no inhibition whatsoever. I don't care what people think of me, because I'm wrapped up in my own internal rapture, whereby I spontaneously wish to express and think, sing and dance. But for politeness' sake, maybe we reserve it to an internal feeling, which comes out as a kind of joy. And can we catch it everywhere? That's the point. Now there are two ways of looking at life. In an optimistic way and a pessimistic way, but what do we mean? A pessimistic outlook on life would say that any new unexpected thing that comes to me, I consider as a challenge, a problem. I may have a complaint about it. I may feel tired about it. It may depress me. It may make me feel rock bottom. If I perpetuate that and repeat that, it may drive me towards suicide. That kind of thing. That's the one approach. And that means I take life in a certain way with no faith. What do I mean by that? What I mean is I didn't see something special in life which was designed. Because another way of looking at things would be, am I specifically designed in a certain way to play a certain role in life? In which case, divinely designed, with divinely designed equipment, with the proper instrumentation that I have. Scripture tells us, with my 9-gated city, says Bhagavad Gita, or 11-gated city, says Katha Upanishad, with this equipment wherein the Lord of the universe sits internally in the heart. With all of that, should I not be able to do my small share and have enough faith that God and His angels will complete the rest? With that attitude, can I not face anything in life in a confident way and revel in God's glory everywhere with tremendous faith and complete fearlessness? Can I not operate in life in that way? Why should I have this pessimistic attitude? Now, if I have an optimistic attitude, thinking that this is all nicely designed, and that God's subtle forces as angels prepare the way, making the crooked paths straight, the biblical passage that says that, that really is positive. And it bypasses karma. It bypasses our anxiety about good and bad deeds, creating effect. How can we avoid another incarnation, pain, and so on and so forth? Bypass that completely when we register that we ourselves are made in the image and likeness of God, and therefore will never die. See the passage this morning from the Bhagavad Gita, repeated at the lunchtime. We have to assert that there's a role in life that we are designed to play, and we can do it joyfully, provided we catch it nicely, and provided we see God's glory manifested everywhere. Learn the art of seeing that. Learn the art of doing that. So that when we take a walk in an easy, comfortable environment, where we can easily catch that, we make that a habit so we can see it everywhere. We can see it in the office. We can see it in ordinary, so-called ordinary items. Is there such a thing as an ordinary item? When we look at it closely, we find it's extraordinary. A plant is extraordinary. A tree is extraordinary. A blade of grass is extraordinary. A bird in flight is extraordinary. These are easy examples. Closer to home, breathing is an extraordinary phenomenon. Replacing all the blood cells, the body, 70 trillion blood cells, constantly being renewed, so that the body that you have right now is almost totally renovated. You don't have to go to a plastic surgeon. Nature has done it for you. You may not like the result, of course, because it comes with wrinkles and grey hairs and so on. Nevertheless, it's all renewed. Renewable energy. We talk in environmental circles about renewable energy. Well, look at how much renewable energy takes place in the human body. Can we pause for a while and appreciate it? To appreciate it, we had to observe it. And so those who know me very well will know I give a very standard formula. What is it?
OATs.
OATs, exactly. OATs. oats means. So when somebody says, some peculiar person like me says, did you have your oats today? I'm not talking about breakfast. So oats, O stands for observation, observe. Observation is something that we're not that good at unless it's something against us. We observe criticism. We observe somebody didn't praise me very well. Or we have some critical eye. Some people will look at a picture and we are able to observe, oh, it's about half an inch out, let me go and adjust it. Some people think that they have to adjust and fill in every single gap that doesn't meet their personal standard in life. That kind of observation many people have. But there's another kind of observation that leads us to a sense of glory. To observe means to see the details and to wonder at it. If we have a scientific bent of mind, it gives us the capacity to observe things in great detail from a position of curiosity. You want to be curious about everything. But we don't have to be a scientist in a classical sense of the word. To be a scientist in a more ordinary sense of the word, that is, somebody who wants to know. We all want to know. If you take a simple object and take it at surface value, you have not known it. If you wonder what its components are, manufactured components are, you'll have a greater knowledge, but you wouldn't have come to the end of it. If you look at its component parts and see where does it come from, you may now go into a realm unseen. Subtle forces being there. And if you go even further, you'll understand what we call these subtle forces are nothing more than God's grace, God's glory being manifested. And so, the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, for example, has a number of chapters dedicated to describing these glories. Furthermore, every religion has such a thing. There are people who come to the ashram on a daily basis, more or less, and recite the Vishnu Sahasranam. 1,000 names of the Lord, from different points of view. You are this, you are that, glory unto this, glory unto that. In fact, that's the same thing there for Ramakrishna. We could have repeated it on Ramakrishna's birthday also. Because devotees find no end to these glories. Because they're observant, they catch it and they tune into it. And having tuned into it, in a sense they become one with it. So for example, in the Catholic Church, you'll find blessed is this, blessed is that. There's a whole recitation, a litany which is sung. Sung, see, not repeated, reflecting a certain mood. So observation is something that we need to hone up as a skill. And walking around here, we can see it. Even walking through the maze or the labyrinth, in the presence of God, walking with God. But God has what? As a presence, inside, outside, as the ground, yes, as the grass. I'm not saying in anymore, I'm saying as. See, this shift comes in the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. I come as this. I am sapidity and water was the last one we talked about on Tuesday. See? I am the taste, the flavor in water. I am the essence of water. So a starting position is, in my observation, can I go out and see nature and see that God is in something? Can I then extend it to people? Can I extend it to people who don't like me? It's easy to forgive, but not so easy to forget. And yet, if we don't forget, we have no forgiveness. So can we see it in the most negative of situations? Can we see it in the things which are seemingly unpleasant? Can we get to a point whereby Like Sri Ramakrishna, we take one material and another, gold and clay, a coin and clay, and say, this is this and this is that, and the same thing, and throw it into the river. Have an equanimity of vision in this way. Can we use all the things that we hear, touch, taste, observe, can we use it to make a link, a kind of association, unconscious association, that evokes the source, namely God? Can we catch an eye like that? Can we take the example of all the great saints and mystics? And since we're talking Sri Ramakrishna, where a small, mild clue is enough to send us on a quick, rapid, internal joy, a journey which results in a kind of ecstatic state, which reminds us of the supreme bliss which always resides within. Can we cultivate the art of doing it? These are questions, and of course the answer is yes, yes, yes. Of course, one person having done it, we can all do it. We can all shift our attention and look at things in a different way, peculiar way. It's only when we look at things in a so-called standard way, we get into trouble, we get bogged down. And then we get all kinds of psychological difficulties, physical difficulties too. Thought is the most rapid moving thing we have. Thought is faster than the speed of light. But the thinker has a decision to make. Should I look at things as a difficulty, an obstacle, a challenge that makes me feel depressed? Or could I look at it as an expression of divine glory coming to me, knowing that everything is safe, knowing that everything is properly designed, knowing that everything will work out, having that level of faith and trust, going into unknown areas like an adventurer, unknown territory. So somebody today was discussing Sri Ramakrishna's example about going into a forest, a woodcutter, cutting wood. He hears a voice, go deeper, go deeper. Then he finds a forest full of sandalwood, silver, and so on and so forth, all the precious metals. He doesn't stop anywhere. But this is not a journey which is saturated with anxiety. Not at all. This is a deepening of joy. It is joyful for the woodcutter to discover a forest made from sandalwood. And it's even more joyful to find something more precious. With each level of the journey, something deeper and more satisfactory is found, something more joyful, something more rewarding is found. And all comparisons and analogies break down at some point because we're comparing something material to something that is immaterial, something that is much more subtle. So you're on an adventure, we're all on an adventure. And our starting point is, let's be a little bit more observant. And so when you continue to walk today and tomorrow, and you have the opportunity everywhere for this tremendous appreciation. From here you see the hill of Tara. That alone is worth a meditation. Walking down to the river Boyne, where the rivers join. I myself haven't been there actually. The last time we came here, we went to many different places. But we went to the smaller river, what's it called? The Skane, exactly. So the Skane. And we were told that, the last time I came here, we were told that the salmon were about to come in. Look at that marvel. You can spend hours and hours and hours together. This is in places like this. But is there a deeper aspect beyond the superficial? Everybody can look at a lovely scenery and get a certain kind of joy. And also we have to understand, why do we have that aesthetic value with us? Why do we have that sense of beauty if it is not our inner nature? And so the inner nature becomes more open, more accessible the deeper we go in. And the deeper we go into everything. So we have to find the God in everything. And then we have to see how that pervades everything. And then we have to see, and it occurs to us spontaneously, the oneness of everything. And so when you record in your notebooks all your experiences, it might be something like this. Today I was walking. Normally I don't see the root of a tree just surfacing. And there, when I looked, I caught a smell, the smell of the earth. And it was muddy, and normally I complain that it will get on my clothes. But on this occasion, I looked at it carefully, and I saw that despite the fact that there was mud there, still the soil is loose enough for the tree to grow. And this tree may be an old friend. There are some trees around here that are, I think there's at least one tree, I think, around here that's about 100 years old. So we were told in our last visit. If you see where we meditate there, you'll see there's a stand on which what the Catholics call Blessed Sacrament is. And then there's a stand, a lectern. This is made from bogwood. It's about 4,000 years old. Yeah. Next time you're there, be a little adventurous, cautiously extend your hand and make friends with it. Stroke it. Coming back to the tree stump though, I decided not only to appreciate the scent and the smell, that smelt of all the nutrients in the soil, and wondered about the age of the tree, but I decided that this tree was my friend. I decided that I would go to the tree and feel its bark, and feel what the sensation of this bark was against my hand. And then I thought, this indeed is the Lord. This indeed is an entity that is strong and defies gravity. This is enduring. This is in tune with the whole of nature, taking a totality of cooperative effort to stand there, using sunshine, using air, being buffered against all the elements, but still remaining firm. And my lesson, I thought, as I saw this and observed it and recorded it, was, let my faith be as strong as this tree. Let my inner beauty be as this tree. Let me share as this tree shares. Because this tree not only shares its beauty, its solidity, and its cooperation and synchronicity with everything, but it also shares life. It becomes a home to birds and insects. What an amazing thing a tree is. It's so amazing that many inspired people would take the tree as an example. One such is in the Kathopanishad, also replicated in Bhagavad Gita as the Ashwatha tree, inverted, the roots above, the branches below. Somebody observed a tree and said, and got an amazing wow moment. He said, the whole of life is here. What I'm saying is that instead of bypassing a tree, you have now created a whole subject for meditation. And the whole subject for meditation will lead you to a point where the source of it is there, expressing itself in a loving way, only for my benefit, so that I can see it, appreciate it, and love it. What a wonderful miracle.
So it says on the, when you go around the wood there, it says on the oak tree that it supports, I think it was 290 other life form or hosts. And one of the other trees, I think it was an elm, which is the most, I think, of tree hosts in Ireland. I never thought of trees like that as hosts of other life forms, you know.
Isn't that wonderful? Yes. Yeah. So how many? 200 and...
290, I think it was, and there was another tree, and it was 90. I think it was an elm.
They had some catching up to do.
Yeah.
Correct.
But the oak is the most, the premier one. Yeah.
Sure, and the oak tree is considered the sacred tree, just as in the East the banyan tree is considered the sacred tree. Here in this part of the world, in the Celtic culture, and probably pre-Celtic, the oak tree is the sacred tree.
I would like just to point out, there is a poster here, amazing oak.
Amazing oak, yes.
So you can read through that many memorable things.
And if it's a male, then you can be a poet and say, the amazing oak is an amazing bloke. You see, somebody wrote that, and how many people have read that? Now here's my observation, or lack of. I didn't even see that, you see, at the back wall. So he saw that, you see, because my vision is here. Observation is extremely important. Without the observation, no appreciation will flow. And without the appreciation, thankfulness won't flow. And without thankfulness, how can we sing God's glory? How can there be a singing moment in the heart? And singing, as you well know, as many of you know, can either be in tune or out of tune.
The latter takes more appreciation.
Even if somebody is singing out of tune and croaking away, and from their point of view, in tune, but from the listener's point of view, are way out of tune, still, you see, we go beyond the point of tolerance, and we go into the point of the appreciation of mere sound. What a miracle it takes for any sound to come up, whether it's pleasant to the ear or not. And that judgment of pleasant or not is purely based on going past this fact of the miracle of sound. Miracle of sound because so many components are necessary. An ear as a medium is necessary for it. An ear to catch it is necessary for it. A brain to interpret it is necessary for it. A witness to observe it is necessary for it. A certain wavelength is necessary for it. All these components are there, all working together in divine harmony, as a kind of divine design, purely from the point of view that we can notice it. Imagine that it is all for our benefit, and there we are noticing it. This loving Lord putting on a display, dressing up in all these different names and forms, waiting patiently, my child, did you see me? Did you see me? I think it was Leo Tolstoy who told a story about a man who lost his faith because he said, I couldn't see my God. And then he made a vow. I will recommence religion if I see God tomorrow. And then he said, I'll have at least this much faith. I'll pray to God and say, here's your challenge. You either present yourself to me tomorrow, because I'm having a lot of difficulties, you either present me to my face tomorrow. And then he became a little cheeky. He said, actually 3 times you have to do it. And if that doesn't happen, then I will close my Bible up forever. He was a Christian. And never open it again. And I don't believe in you at all. Anyway, the following day, nothing seemed to happen. Well, a few things happened. There was a child he saw walking past, looking for some income for his mother. And the man gave him some coins. Then there was a visitor who came. And the visitor came with a loaf of bread. And they sat together and they had a meal. And then there was some other person, let's say a woman, who came. And she came to collect the washing. And anyway, that day passed. And that evening, midnight, because he made the deal, he was an honest man. And he said, okay, Lord, you are not there. Here's my complaint. My contract is over with you. I've now become an atheist. Now an inner voice opened up and a voice blew forth and said, but I came 3 times. When did you come? Didn't you see me as a little boy? I came to you. I smiled at you. I looked into your face. You looked into mine. I thought you recognized me at that point. Alas, you didn't. And then you came, as your friend. And you came to take I came to take the laundry. I came as your friend. I gave you bread. We shared bread together. We laughed. You muttered something about God or something. But we laughed. We shared the bread. Didn't you recognize me in all of these things? Now Jesus tells that story also in a different way. Man in heaven, see? And a man destined not to succeed there in the afterlife. And he said, did you feed the poor? Did you feed me? Did you clothe me? Did you house me? He who does this to these, the least of my children, does it unto me. Basil, what's the exact quotation?
I was going to say Lazarus, but he was a
No,
beggar
it wasn't
man who
Lazarus.
died and went to heaven.
Yeah.
And he saw the rich man in hell, and the rich man asked him to send down a drop of water. Is that the story?
Maybe, yeah.
Beyond that, I just can't recall the rest.
Okay, all good. So that's something for you to, when you have internet, to do some Google on. But that's the purport of the story is this. The purport of the story is very plain. You didn't recognize me in all these things, in all these areas. And why specifically in the poor? Why specifically in the downtrodden? This brings us up to date now with Swami Vivekananda's efforts and talks. It's because these are the aspects that we should attend to most, because God is there in this humble cottage called a body. And in that condition, it gives us the opportunity to worship. Not that we uplift somebody, but we serve the God within them. After all, God is never hungry. God is never impoverished. God is always full and free and perfect. It's our view that it is otherwise. When we shift up his position and see that perfection and glory within, then 2 things happen. There's an internal shift in us, and there's an external shift in the circumstances. Because thought and intention, a divine grace that constantly flows, will have its effect and condense in the world around us as new things, new people, new places, all conducive to the wonderful play, the wonderful drama, the divine drama that we are enacting. So appreciation is necessary, thankfulness is necessary, and in this environment there's an opportunity for you to record in your notebooks. The remarkable thing about these retreats is there's a kind of shift in attitude, a kind of growth that is rewarding to monitor. Not that we're trying to achieve anything, not that we are comparing, last year's performance, as it were, no. So walking with God, not for any other purpose but for companionship. This is called practicing the presence. Practicing the presence is the title of a small book by Brother Lawrence. Many of you, I've introduced this book to you. I actually have a copy here. I don't know, did I bring it here? It's probably on the table here. Practicing the Presence by Brother Lawrence. Those of you who don't know, he was I think 17th century monk. He wasn't always a monk, so he was a carriage driver, and he wasn't doing so well, and he was leading a life that he wasn't truly satisfied with, maybe not the most virtuous life. And he decided for his tapasya that he would join a monastery with the idea, let me be miserable. Anyhow, he only has one complaint after years and years in the monastery. His one complaint is, I was never unhappy. I was always in a blissful state. But what did he do? Mundane things. Washing, cleaning the floors, opening the door, closing the door presumably thereafter, and things like this. Or cooking also, yeah, cooking. Regardless of whether it was good or not, probably. It's an internal joke, don't worry. My joy is cooking, his penance is eating. So there we are.
Oats.
Huh?
Oats.
Oats.
You said about O,
Yes.
and then AT, yes.
It is appreciation. Appreciation. Yeah.
I actually covered the whole thing because
Appreciation.
the O was observed, the A was appreciation, and the T was thankfulness. All right? But I'll expand a little bit on the appreciation because the appreciation is more of an internal thing. You can't have a cup of appreciation. And so the appreciation is something that goes from the surface to a deeper level. Now, I mentioned this, but let me elaborate some more on it. When we look at all these superficial things and employ all the senses one by one, there is an immediate appreciation, but the appreciation can deepen. It deepens by not stopping there, by going much, much deeper until we arrive at the source, which religion calls God, and which is in fact the same internal Atma or self, divine self, as is in us all. By doing that repeatedly with different examples, we get into a habit. So a question today was about repeating the mantra, doing japam, and does it affect or alter or change in any way the unconsciousness? Of course it does, because what happens on the conscious always goes into the unconscious. There's a carbon copy, an imprint, always taken, and that carries forward. It's kind of like packing a bag, and we keep it. And when a suitable suggestion comes from the outside, we take the appropriate thing in the bag and it brings out, and many other things, all differently associated, come out. The various links come out. Supposing we are able to convert this habit level, how do we do it? Not by attacking it directly, but doing it from a conscious mind. And so this kind of training, viewing things in a different way, shifting our perspective, allows us to appreciate things much, much more at a much deeper level. And then an indwelling of thankfulness comes. And adoration naturally comes as a result. And an inner rapture. Now supposing you do that, I often say, I repeat again, if you do that physically, what happens? Do not 60, 70 trillion biological cells of the body thrill with this? Does not the whole of nature uplift itself within you? And this is the very reason why, going back to an original subject of holy company, why we find that there's a radiating holiness, a radiating vibrational feeling from those people who are holy. Just to review what the holiness means, those people who've done away with every desire, but more on the positive side, who are practicing the presence of God to the extent that every moment, every waking thought, and also every non-waking moment, we might suggest as well, is just filled and saturated with the divine presence, so that naturally and spontaneously it radiates through the very pores of the skin to the other. Being in the environment of such holy people is enough. And there are many recorded cases. The most obvious case, of course, is Sri Ramakrishna. And because Jesus is so distant from us in time, we are maybe out of touch with that a little bit, but the same applies there. I don't know if you remember an instant where Jesus was walking into Peter's mother-in-law's house, and there was a big crowd surrounding him. And somebody touched the tassel of his cloak, and he turns around amidst the whole pressure of everything and says, "Who touched me?" And his disciples are saying, Peter particularly, is trying to get him into the house. He says, "Why are you worrying about who touched me? Let's get in and have something to eat, you know. All these crowds are pressing around and so on and so forth." He said, "Why do you say, who touched me?" He said, "I felt power being withdrawn from me. I felt something there. See? I felt that there was some kind of connection there." And the woman also felt it because she was cured of a hemorrhage. So there's this whole vibration that goes on. Why? Because the whole world is nothing more than vibrations. And when you make these vibrations and waves and whirlpools sacred, because they are already sacred, when you acknowledge their sanctity, then your whole world internally and externally changes for you. Does that mean that your circumstances change? Does it mean you don't have problems and difficulties like anybody else? Oh yes, but you do not call them problems and difficulties anymore. They're merely obstacles which can easily be gotten around. They're part of the divine play, and they're easily to get around. Once you know, I am fully equipped, I'm divinely equipped. What is man? A multi-purpose instrument, a multi-purpose adapter, facing different kinds of situations, easily able to cope with a matching divine corresponding movement on the other side, called the universe, or nature, or God's grace. God's glory is to be found everywhere if we have an eye for it. I'll conclude with that.